There are voices that fill a room, and then there are voices that fill a lifetime. Dalida had one of those voices. She sang in 10 languages. She sold over 170 million records. She became a legend across Europe, the Middle East, and beyond. But behind the spotlight, there was a silence no applause could ever heal. Because the world saw the star, but never fully understood the woman carrying the weight of being loved by millions, and still feeling alone. This is not just the story of fame. This is the story of Dalida and the cost of being unforgettable. Before she became Dalida, she was Iolanda Gigliotti, born in Cairo, Egypt in 1933, daughter of Italian immigrants. A child growing up between cultures, languages, and identities. She didn't fully belong to one world. And maybe that's where it started. The lifelong feeling of being in between everything. As a child, she faced an eye condition that affected her appearance. Multiple surgeries followed. And even when the problem was corrected, something deeper stayed behind. A feeling that she had to prove herself. Not just to the world, but to herself. In 1954, she was crowned Miss Egypt. But beauty was never her final destination. She left Cairo for Paris with a dream bigger than fear. A new name, Dalida. A new identity, a new life. At first, Paris didn't open doors easily. It tested her, rejected her, ignored her. But she didn't stop. Then came the turning point. Bambino. The song didn't just become a hit. It became a phenomenon. Suddenly, the girl who arrived unknown was everywhere. Radio, television, stage, fame. Dalida had arrived. What made Dalida different was not just fame. It was reach. She didn't sing for one country. She sang for the world. French, Italian, Arabic, Spanish, German, Hebrew, Japanese. Each language carried her voice differently. Each audience felt she belonged to them. She became a rare kind of artist, not just a singer, but a global presence. By the 1960s and 70s, she wasn't chasing fame anymore. Fame was chasing her. But success has a shadow, and hers was growing quietly. Behind the stage lights, Dalida's personal life was fragile. Her relationships were intense, but often marked by emotional distance, instability, and tragedy. The men she loved did not always stay, and some of them never returned at all. Each loss didn't just hurt. It accumulated, like invisible weight added year after year. And slowly, success on stage began to feel very different off stage. Because applause cannot hold your hand at night. And fame cannot sit with you in silence. By the 1970s, Dalida was no longer just a singer. She was an icon, but inside she was tired. Not of music, but of everything it demanded from her. She continued performing. She continued reinventing herself. Disco, pop, ballads, cinema. But the cracks were no longer invisible. There were moments where even success felt distant, unreal, unreachable. And yet, she still stepped onto the stage, every single time. In May 1987, Dalida's story came to an end in Paris. She left behind a shortened note, simple words, heavy meaning. A life that had been lived in front of millions, ended in complete silence. The world reacted instantly. Grief, shock, tribute. But what remained wasn't just the sadness of loss. It was the realization of something deeper, that someone so loved could still feel so alone. Dalida is gone, but not absent. Her voice still plays in old records, films, and late-night radios. Her songs still carry emotion that feels strangely personal. Because she didn't just sing, she lived it. Every heartbreak, every longing, every silence. And maybe that's why she is still remembered today. Not just as a star, but as a reminder that even the brightest lights can carry the deepest shadows. Dalida didn't just belong to history. She belongs to feeling. When Dalida was gone, the world didn't move on quickly, but life always continues, even after silence. In the years after her passing, something unexpected happened. Her music didn't fade. It grew. Radio stations kept playing her songs. New generations discovered her voice. And suddenly, Dalida was no longer just a memory of the past. She became timeless. What made Dalida different from many stars was simple. She didn't belong to an era. She belonged to emotion. Songs like Paroles, Paroles and Gigi Lamoroso didn't age. They kept finding new listeners, people who had never seen her live, but still felt her deeply. Her voice carried something unusual, a mixture of elegance and sadness, as if she always understood more than she said. And that's why she stayed alive in music, not physically, but emotionally. On stage, Dalida was powerful, controlled, glowing, perfect. But behind that image, there was another reality. She once said in interviews that fame feels like being surrounded by people, but still feeling unreachable. Everyone wanted something from her, a smile, a song, a performance, a memory. But very few asked what she needed. And slowly, that gap became her silent companion. Dalida's life was marked by separation, love that ended, friends who left, losses that never fully healed. She didn't just experience heartbreak, she collected it. And over time, it changed how she saw everything, including herself. But because someone gives love repeatedly and loses it repeatedly, they begin to question if love is something they can keep at all. Today, Dalida is remembered differently in different places. In France, a national icon. In Egypt, a daughter of Cairo. In Italy, a voice of heritage. Across the world, a global artist before globalization existed. Few performers ever reached that level of cultural presence. But her real legacy is not geography, it is emotion. Because people don't just remember Dalida's songs, they feel them, even decades later. If you strip away fame, if you remove records, awards, and history, what remains is simple. A woman who loved deeply, a woman who lost deeply, and a woman who gave everything she had to her art. Maybe too much. Because sometimes the same heart that creates greatness is the one that carries the heaviest silence. Dalida is no longer on stage, but she never really left it. Every time her voice plays, somewhere in the world, a new listener discovers her for the first time. And for a moment she lives again, not as a legend, but as a feeling. Still singing, still reaching, still Dalida. Time has a strange way of changing everything, except certain voices. Years after Dalida was gone, her presence didn't disappear from culture. It slowly transformed. From a singer to a memory to a feeling people couldn't fully explain. Her songs started appearing in films, documentaries, and personal playlists of people who were not even born when she performed. And still, they felt her. That is not popularity, that is permanence. Dalida didn't just sing about love. She sang about what happens after love changes, about waiting, about remembering, about losing, and continuing anyway. That's why her songs don't feel like entertainment. They feel like confession. When she sings, it never feels like she is performing. It feels like she is remembering something real. And that is why her voice still stays in people long after the song ends. There is a difference between a star who disappears and a star who leaves silence behind. Dalida left both, silence in her personal life and sound in the world. That contrast is what makes her story so powerful, because her life reminds us of something uncomfortable, that even the most admired people can carry loneliness that no audience ever sees. Was she a singer? Yes. Was she an actress? Yes. Was she an icon? Absolutely. But none of these words feel enough, because Dalida was something more difficult to define. She was emotion in motion. She was beauty mixed with sadness. She was success wrapped around fragility, a contradiction that somehow made perfect sense on stage. Today, her name still echoes across continents, in Paris cafes, in old French radio stations, in Arabic playlists late at night, in homes where someone discovers her for the first time. And every new listener feels the same thing. not surprise, but recognition, as if the voice was already known. That is how legacy works when it is real. It doesn't stay in history books. It lives in people. Dalida is not just remembered. She is replayed. She is refelt. She is relived. Because some artists don't stay in time. They move through it. And even now, if you hear her voice in a quiet room, it doesn't feel old. It feels present. Like she never fully left. Like somewhere, she is still singing. Not for the world, but for anyone still listening. Dalida didn't just leave behind music. She left behind proof that even a broken heart can become something eternal. More than 3 decades after her death, Dalida remains one of those rare artists whose influence refuses to fade. Most stars belong to a generation. Dalida belongs to several. People who grew up in the 1960s remember her as the glamorous young singer who seemed destined for greatness. Those who came of age in the 1970s remember the reinvention, the confidence, and the way she adapted while others disappeared. And younger listeners often discover something entirely different. Not a celebrity, not an icon, but a human being. Someone who spake about the same emotions people still struggle with today. Love, loss, regret, hope, loneliness, the desire to belong. These feelings do not age. That is why her music does not age either. When modern listeners discover Dalida, they are often surprised by how contemporary her emotions feel. The fashion belongs to another era. The recordings belong to another era. But the feelings do not. And perhaps that is the secret behind her lasting appeal. She never sang from a distance. She sang from experience. The audience sensed it, even when they could not explain it, even when they spoke different languages, even when they lived on different continents. Because authenticity travels farther than fame ever can. And Dalida had authenticity in abundance. That may be the greatest lesson her life leaves behind. Success matters, recognition matters, achievement matters. But what people remember most is honesty. The feeling that someone meant every word they sang. The feeling that behind the performance was a real person. A person who struggled, a person who loved, a person who hoped, a person who endured. And ultimately, a person who left an unforgettable mark on the world. For that reason, Dalida remains more than a star. She remains a story people continue to tell, and a voice people continue to hear. Long after the final curtain fell, some voices entertain us for a season, others stay with us for a lifetime. Dalida was one of the rare few who did both.